Hello, Clement229 here, another Topic of the Week video. This week I'll be talking about some animated movies that didn't age like milk. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr user Azura Fox, and their topic is, since you did a topic on why Star Wars hasn't aged badly, how about one on any animated films that aged pretty well? This is actually kind of a funny topic to look at, because I was just doing a rabbit stream with some people in the Discord, rewatching Treasure Planet. And I hadn't seen that movie since I was a kid. Probably not since closer to around when it came out. And honestly, it really holds up well. And it's funny because I had the same feeling looking at Atlantis, The Lost Empire. A movie that I hadn't seen in a long time that, wow, it actually really does age well. But I've also been on a bit of a Disney kick lately, rewatching a lot of movies, mainly from the 90s. And I can have to say, all of them that I've watched still hold up well. I mean, you have movies like Tarzan, Hercules, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Beauty and the Beast, Mulan. These movies all still hold up and are still considered classics to this day. Which is so funny because people will try to justify these live-action remakes as anything more than just a soulless corporate cash grab by saying, we need to introduce kids of a new generation to this. So you show them the old movies. Beauty and the Beast still holds up. It didn't need a live-action remake. I mean, it's funny because I know I've always adored a lot of these movies growing up, but, watching some of them, genuinely, they hold up. And I was especially surprised looking at Tarzan. Because Tarzan is a movie that, I've always liked Tarzan, but it's not something I've seen in a long time. So looking back, the animation, the story, the music of Tarzan especially. Phil Collins didn't need to go that hard, but he did, and God bless him. All these movies are just so iconic. Atlantis but we all know about those movies. A lot of those movies from the Disney Renaissance are still iconic classics. Atlantis and Treasure Planet are ones that stick out a little bit more to me, considering the fact that they didn't catch on at the time, and they were never really big popular movies, but watching them, they're actually really good. And it's such a shame. I kept saying this, that, it's such a shame that these movies never caught on. I'm not saying I wanted a huge franchise out of them, but just if they were at least enough of a success that Disney didn't just kind of ignore them for years. And it's funny because the early 2000s was a really kind of odd time for Disney. You had Lilo and Stitch, and everyone loves Lilo and Stitch. I don't need to talk about that movie holding up. But just the years before that, you had Atlantis and Treasure Planet coming out. And they just never clicked with people. And they're very different from the typical Disney fare, the musical stuff. Even stuff like Hunchback of Notre Dame. Had a lot of musical stuff in it, which is great. I love the music of Hunchback of Notre Dame, but those movies are very different. But they still hold up really well. And I think I would kind of urge some people to go back and check out Treasure Planet and Atlantis: The Lost Empire, simply because they just never really got the appreciation they really deserved. They don't have a whole bunch of iconic music. Treasure Planet has a song sung by the Goo Goo Dolls, I think. But Atlantis: The Lost Empire doesn't have any actual song. It's got a great soundtrack, but there's no songs that people get attached to. Maybe that's one of the reasons why a lot of those other movies are so fondly remembered. But it is what it is with those movies. But and it's so funny when you look back at those movies and you compare them to a lot of modern movies, and they're better. Especially some animated movies. It's you look at something like Wreck-It Ralph 2, and it's I like the first Wreck-It Ralph. And that movie wasn't all good. I wasn't even interested in seeing it just because it didn't look interesting. you know, you've got Disney remaking these classic movies in live action when, like, they still hold up. Yes, they're 10, 20, 30 years old by now, but those movies are timeless. Beauty and the Beast, like, that's still considered one of the best Disney movies. I freaking love that movie. Pretty much everyone loves that movie. Which is why you also saw not just a huge response of people going to see the live-action Beauty and the Beast, but also a huge backlash against it simply because people still love the original. And it's not even just blind fanboyism and stuff. It's no. These movies genuinely still hold up. Like, no, really. Like, and it's funny. You go back and you'll watch these movies. You go back and watch the movies from like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. I mean, not Lion King's another movie that's getting a live action remake, but it's like, it's not necessary. These movies are timeless, you know. And another thing that's really funny is that you have a lot of people, and especially this is coming up a lot recently with Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, and they start talking about, you know, strong female characters. I already did a topic on this, so I won't go too deeply into this, but you look back at some of these Renaissance movies and you see characters like Mulan, Belle, Jane, Esmeralda, Megara. They're all great characters, beloved characters. And it's funny, looking at Tarzan, since that one's a little bit more grounded than a lot of the other movies, relatively speaking, of course, it doesn't have a whole bunch of magic and fantasy and stuff in it. But you look at a character like Jane, and she's a researcher. She's an intelligent woman. And you don't have any guys going, ha, a woman being smart, just making those cliche misogynistic things so that a female character can prove them wrong and prove that she's tough enough. But it's like, yeah, you know, they don't need to do that. They didn't need to point this stuff out. It's like, no, they have strong characters, they have strong female characters, so it's kind of nonsense to talk about any modern character in the last 5 or so years breaking all sorts of like, oh no, like female characters. It's like, yeah, we've had these for decades, you know, strong female characters. There's no ground really being broken here, to be honest. But especially when you look back at a character like Mulan, and it's like, yeah, she's a tough, in a lot of ways, this typical strong female character. I'm like, that's back in the 90s. And it's like, in those movies, you know, they still hold up. Even if you try to compare, you know, modern politics to them, it's like, yeah, they still hold up. Atlantis, the Lost Empire, has a very diverse cast of characters. But it's never brought up. It's not like they go, oh, wow, look, we have a Hispanic woman as our engineer, or we've got a half black and half Native American doctor. I mean, it's mentioned, but they don't focus on it. And it's like, what happened to that? What happened to these great stories? What happened to these great characters? Like, it's like they got to the point where they're so content with just sort of making whatever that they don't actually try to make great movies with great stories. And, you know, and even if some of the stuff like Treasure Planet and Atlantis: The Lost Empire didn't really strike a chord with people at the time, you know, they still hold up. And I think if you introduce that to today's audiences, I think a lot of people would really get more into that stuff. Like, I'm sure people are a little bit more used to Disney having some more of these different things in the typical, you know, Disney princess musical movies. I mean, I'd like to see them try another movie like that. Because, you know, the more straightforward action-adventure movie that takes itself a little bit more seriously, and of course it's got a little bit of that Disney fun to it, but it's mostly a serious story. It's like, no, I'd like to see more of that. I mean, I'd like to see it in, you know, 2D animation, but that's a different topic for a different time. But it's like, I think Disney should really kind of go back and look at a lot of those movies from the Renaissance specifically, but even, you know, the early 2000s, to look at what worked and what didn't work. Because there were some movies that just weren't all that great. But I really think that they should look back and say, this is what they did before. I mean, it's like, I feel like Frozen and Tangled and even Princess and the Frog were very much, they felt great, and because they felt like they were inspired, movies, even if they were, the Disney princess movies. They felt like there were people who wanted to make those movies. But Frozen came out in 2013? It's been a long time. It's been years since that. I mean, I didn't really mean to just focus this on Disney, but really, I'd like Disney to go back and look at these movies, because you look at those: The Little Mermaid, Mulan, Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Lion King, Hercules, Tarzan, Treasure Planet, Atlantis: The Lost Empire. You have these great movies that stand the test of time. I can go back now as an adult and look at those movies, even if I'm looking at it as a critic, someone who's being critical of it, and still come away loving the movie because they're great movies. They're objectively good movies. I'd love to see another true Disney Renaissance, with great animated movies. I'd love to see 2D animation. But again, that's a topic for another time. Because those movies still hold up, and I do encourage, we all talk about movies like Beauty and the Beast and Lion King are usually talked about for the most part. But I would encourage people to go back and look at those Renaissance movies, and even Treasure Planet and Atlantis: The Lost Empire, and look at them from a perspective of how they've held up over the years. Because it's funny watching it with a bunch of other people and enjoying a movie like Treasure Planet, even, what was that, 2002? So 17 years after it came out? Sheesh. It's like, yeah, those movies, they're still good. Disney, please go back to that. Please go back to really caring about making those movies. So yeah, I think that's about it for this topic. If you want to submit a topic to me, you can comment below if you're on YouTube. If you're on Tumblr, you can send me an ask and put topic : then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Or if you're on the Discord, you can submit a topic to me on the topic submissions channel. Just make sure to follow the rules that I'll be posting down below. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. So, what are some other animated movies that still hold up to you? It doesn't have to be Disney, but please comment below. And thank you for watching.